Admiral Beck stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet through the massive viewing screen. Earth looked so peaceful from this distance. The swirling white clouds moved slowly across the green and brown continents. The single moon orbited lazily around the world like a loyal pet following its master. "Such a pathetic little world," Beck said to his tactical officer standing beside him. "I almost feel sorry for these humans. They have no idea what is about to happen to them." The tactical officer checked his scanning equipment and shook his head. "Sir, our long-range sensors show they have barely mastered travel within their own solar system. Their largest ships cannot even reach half the speed of light. Their weapons are primitive chemical explosives and basic energy beams. They pose no threat to the Empire." Vex smiled and walked to his command chair. The Caltharian Empire had conquered 17 star systems using the same simple strategy. First, they would demonstrate their overwhelming power by destroying several major population centers. The terrified natives would immediately surrender rather than face total extinction. It had worked every single time. "Begin the bombardment," Vex ordered. "Target their largest population centers. I want to see surrender messages within 6 hours." The weapons officer activated the orbital bombardment systems. Massive energy beams lanced down from the Caltharian fleet toward Earth. The first beam struck a large city on the eastern coast of the northern continent. The entire city vanished in a flash of brilliant light. The second beam hit an island nation across a vast ocean. The third struck a city in the central part of a large landmass. The fourth targeted a northern city covered in snow and ice. Within minutes, 4 of Earth's largest cities had been completely destroyed. Millions of humans died in the attacks. The energy readings from the bombardment sites showed nothing but glass and molten rock where the cities had once stood. "Perfect accuracy," the weapons officer reported. "All targets eliminated, estimated casualties in the tens of millions." Vex leaned back in his command chair and waited. Soon the communication systems would light up with desperate pleas for mercy from the surviving humans. The primitive creatures would beg the mighty Caltharian Empire to spare their world. They would offer to serve as slaves in exchange for their lives. It was always the same pattern, but minutes passed and no communications came from Earth. The communication officer checked his equipment several times and looked confused. "Sir, I am detecting no distress signals from the planet. No emergency broadcasts, no attempts to contact us." "Give them time," Vex said calmly. "They are probably too shocked to respond immediately. The reality of their situation needs to sink in first." An hour passed. Still no communications from Earth. The scanning officer reported something strange. "Sir, we are detecting massive electromagnetic activity across the planet. It appears to be coordinated somehow, but we cannot identify the source or purpose." 2 hours passed. The electromagnetic activity continued to increase. Communication satellites around Earth began moving into new positions. Ground-based transmission arrays started broadcasting on frequencies the Caltharians had never encountered before. 3 hours passed. The Caltharian fleet waited in high orbit for the inevitable surrender. But instead of panicked broadcasts, they detected something else. The human communication networks had gone completely silent. No television signals. No radio transmissions, no internet traffic. The entire planet had stopped talking. "This is unusual," the tactical officer said, quietly. "In our previous conquests, the natives always attempted to negotiate or at least communicate their surrender terms." 4 hours passed. The silence from Earth became unsettling. The scanning officer reported even stranger readings. "Sir, we are detecting massive movement of personnel and equipment toward the bombardment sites. It appears the humans are not fleeing from the destroyed areas, they are moving toward them." Vex stood up from his command chair and walked to the viewing screen. Earth looked exactly the same as before. The clouds still moved slowly across the continents. The moon still orbited peacefully, but something felt different. Something felt wrong. 5 hours passed. The electromagnetic activity reached unprecedented levels. Every satellite around Earth was now broadcasting on the strange new frequencies. Ground installations that had never existed before appeared on long-range scans. The humans were building something. 6 hours passed. Still no surrender. Dex began to feel uncomfortable. In every previous conquest, the natives had surrendered within 3 hours of the demonstration bombardment. Some had surrendered within minutes, but these humans seemed to be ignoring the Caltharian fleet entirely. "Send a message to the planet," Dex ordered. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy every major population center on their world." The communication officer transmitted the message on all human frequencies. They waited for a response. The only answer was continued silence. The electromagnetic activity continued to increase. More construction appeared at the bombardment sites. The humans were definitely building something in the ruins of their destroyed cities. 7 hours passed. 8 hours. 9 hours. The Caltharian fleet waited in growing confusion. This had never happened before. No species had ever simply ignored a Caltharian ultimatum. No species had ever responded to orbital bombardment by building construction projects in the blast craters. "Sir," the scanning officer said nervously, "we are detecting some kind of technology at the bombardment sites that we cannot identify. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be a fusion of our bombardment technology with some kind of human engineering." Dex felt a chill run through his body. The humans were not cowering in terror. They were not preparing to surrender. They were studying the bombardment sites. They were learning from the attack. They were building something with the residual energy and materials left behind by Caltharian weapons. "Impossible," Dex whispered. "They are a primitive species. They cannot possibly understand our technology." But the scanning reports continued to show construction activity around all 4 bombardment sites. The humans were working around the clock. They had mobilized their entire industrial capacity, and somehow they were making progress on projects. That should have been impossible for their level of technological development. 10 hours passed. 11 hours. 12 hours. The silence from Earth continued. The construction projects grew larger and more complex, and Admiral Lex began to realize that perhaps the Caltharian Empire had made a terrible mistake. Captain Rex piloted his reconnaissance ship through Earth's upper atmosphere and tried to understand what he was seeing below. 3 weeks had passed since Admiral Lex ordered the bombardment of 4 human cities. 3 weeks of complete silence from the planet. 3 weeks of mysterious construction activity that defied all logical explanation. Rex had been ordered to investigate the bombardment sites and determine why the humans had not surrendered. The mission should have been simple: land near the blast craters, scan for survivors, document the damage, and return with proof that the demonstration had worked as intended. But as Rex descended toward the coordinates of the first destroyed city, he realized nothing about this mission would be simple. The crater where the city had once stood was not empty. It was full of humans. Thousands of them worked in organized teams around massive construction projects. Heavy machinery moved constantly through the area. Bright lights illuminated the work sites even during the night hours. Rex landed his ship on a hill overlooking the crater and activated his scanning equipment. The readings made no sense. The humans had built some kind of facility in the exact center of the blast zone. Energy signatures indicated advanced power generation systems. Material analysis showed metals and alloys that matched Caltharian technology specifications. Rex put on his environmental suit and left his ship to get a closer look. He activated his personal cloaking device and moved carefully down the hill toward the construction site. What he saw when he reached the edge of the crater made him stop breathing for several seconds. The humans had not just built a facility. They had built a factory. A massive industrial complex designed to process and refine the exotic materials left behind by the Caltharian bombardment. Conveyor systems moved chunks of crystallized energy through processing stations. Robotic assembly lines put together components that looked suspiciously like Caltharian technology, But the technology was not exactly Caltharian. The humans had changed it somehow, improved it, made it more efficient. Rex watched human engineers modify plasma conduits to handle twice the energy throughput of standard Caltharian systems. He observed human scientists create alloy combinations that his own species had never attempted. Rex moved around the perimeter of the facility and tried to count the workers. At least 5,000 humans labored in the crater. They worked in rotating shifts that kept the facility operating around the clock. They communicated with hand signals and written notes rather than radio transmissions. They maintained complete electromagnetic silence while building something that should have been impossible. Rex activated his long-range scanner and checked the other bombardment sites. The readings showed identical construction projects at all 4 locations. 4 massive industrial facilities built in the craters left by Caltharian weapons. 4 factories designed to reverse engineer and improve alien technology. 4 centers of human activity that had been created in just 3 weeks. Rex tried to contact Admiral X to report his findings, but discovered something disturbing. His communication system was being jammed, not by Caltharian technology, but by human systems. The humans had learned to disrupt alien communications. They had developed countermeasures against technology they had first encountered 3 weeks ago. Rex returned to his ship and attempted to launch into orbit. His engine started normally, but as he reached the upper atmosphere, warning lights began flashing across his control panel. Something was interfering with his navigation systems. Something was tracking his ship. Something was preparing to intercept him. 3 human spacecraft appeared on Rex's scanner display. They looked crude compared to Caltharian ships. Angular, metal hulls with exposed weapon systems and improvised armor plating. But they moved with coordinated precision that suggested advanced tactical programming. They surrounded Rex's ship in a perfect triangular formation that maximized their firing angles while minimizing his escape options. Rex tried to accelerate away from the human ships, but they matched his speed effortlessly. Their engines produced energy signatures that were definitely based on Caltharian technology, but somehow generated more thrust per unit of fuel. The humans had not just copied alien technology. They had made it better. A communication signal reached Rex's ship on a frequency he recognized as standard Caltharian military protocol. But the voice that spoke was human. The language was human. The message was delivered in perfect Caltharian grammar and pronunciation. Caltharian vessel, you are ordered to return to the surface for inspection and interrogation. Comply immediately, or you will be destroyed. Rex stared at his communication panel in shock. The humans had learned the Caltharian language. They had decoded military communication protocols. They had somehow acquired knowledge that should have taken years of study to obtain, and they had done it all in 3 weeks. Rex decided to attempt escape rather than surrender. He engaged his ship's maximum acceleration and tried to break free from the human formation. The human ships responded instantly. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons and struck Rex's ship with perfect accuracy. The beams were not designed to destroy. They were designed to disable. Rex's engines failed. His weapon systems went offline. His life support remained functional, but everything else shut down. The human weapons had selectively targeted specific ship systems while leaving others intact. They wanted him alive. They wanted his ship intact. They wanted to study both. One of the human ships attached itself to Rex's vessel with a docking clamp that looked suspiciously like modified Caltharian hardware. Rex heard the sound of cutting tools working on his hull. The humans were boarding his ship. They were taking him prisoner. Rex activated his ship's emergency beacon before the humans could stop him. The signal would reach Admiral Vex within hours. The Admiral would learn that the human species was not just surviving the Caltharian demonstration, they were thriving. They were learning. They were becoming dangerous. As human soldiers in environmental suits entered his ship, Rex realized the terrible truth. The Caltharian bombardment had not weakened humanity, it had educated them. It had given them access to advanced technology and the motivation to master it quickly. The attack that should have forced human surrender had instead created the most dangerous enemy the Caltharian Empire had ever faced. The humans secured Rex with restraints that were definitely based on Caltharian designs but somehow more effective than the originals. As they prepared to transport him to the surface, Rex looked out through his ship's viewing port at Earth below. The planet no longer looked peaceful and primitive. It looked like a fortress, a world that was preparing for war. Admiral Rex received Captain Rex's emergency beacon signal exactly 12 weeks after the initial bombardment of Earth, 12 weeks of silence from the planet, 12 weeks of growing confusion and concern among the Caltharian fleet. 12 weeks of waiting for a surrender that never came. The signal contained Rex's reconnaissance data and a brief message that made Rex's blood run cold. Humans have weaponized our technology. They are more dangerous than anticipated. Request immediate reinforcements and full invasion fleet deployment. Vex studied the data Rex had transmitted before his capture. The images showed massive industrial facilities built in the bombardment craters. The energy readings indicated technology that surpassed standard Caltharian specifications. The tactical analysis suggested human military capabilities that should not have existed. Impossible, Vex said to his tactical officer. These readings must be incorrect. No primitive species can advance this quickly. But the evidence was undeniable. The humans had not just survived the bombardment. They had used it as a learning opportunity. They had reverse-engineered Caltharian technology in just 12 weeks and somehow improved upon designs that had taken the Empire centuries to develop. Vex activated the fleet-wide communication system and addressed all ship commanders. We will proceed with full planetary invasion. Deploy all landing forces. Establish orbital fire support positions. These humans have proven more resourceful than expected, but they remain a primitive species with limited resources. The Caltharian invasion fleet moved into attack formation around Earth. 200 ships positioned themselves for maximum tactical advantage. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier vessels. Bombardment cruisers charged their weapon systems. Transport ships loaded with ground forces prepared for planetary assault. As the fleet moved into position, long-range scanners detected something unexpected. The human moon, which had appeared empty during previous observations, was now covered with structures, weapon emplacements, defense platforms, energy generators that produced readings comparable to Caltharian military installations. Sir, the scanning officer reported nervously, we are detecting significant defensive installations on the lunar surface. Energy signatures suggest weapon systems capable of engaging our fleet. Vex looked at the tactical display and felt his confidence begin to waver. The humans had fortified their moon in just 12 weeks. They had built defensive positions that could threaten Caltharian warships. They had somehow acquired the engineering knowledge and industrial capacity to construct military installations that rivaled Empire standards. The attack began with a coordinated bombardment of the lunar installations. 50 Caltharian ships focused their fire on the moon's defensive positions. Energy beams lanced across space and struck the human fortifications with devastating force. Explosions erupted across the lunar surface as the bombardment found its targets, but the human defenses did not crumble as expected. Instead, they returned fire. Weapon systems that had never appeared on any Caltharian scanner suddenly revealed themselves. Energy beams and projectile weapons struck back at the fleet with accuracy that defied explanation. The humans were not just defending. They were counterattacking. 3 Caltharian ships took critical damage in the first exchange of fire. The human weapons penetrated shields that should have been impenetrable to primitive technology. The energy signatures indicated weapons that were definitely based on Caltharian designs but somehow more powerful than the originals. How is this possible? Vex demanded. Our shields are rated against the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. These humans should not be able to penetrate our defenses. The tactical officer studied his instruments with growing alarm. Sir, The human weapons appear to be using our own shield frequencies against us. They have somehow learned to tune their weapons to exploit weaknesses in our defensive systems. The battle escalated as more human installations revealed themselves. Throughout the solar system, asteroid mining operations that had appeared to be simple industrial facilities suddenly deployed weapon systems. Space stations that had seemed to be primitive research outposts began broadcasting targeting data to coordinate attacks on the Caltharian fleet. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases on dozens of asteroids and small moons. The human fighters looked crude and improvised, but they moved with tactical precision that suggested advanced artificial intelligence or unprecedented coordination between pilots. They attacked in formations that maximized damage while minimizing their own losses. Commander Quinn, Dex's most experienced tactical officer, watched the battle unfold with growing horror. "Sir, the humans are not fighting like a newly contacted species. They are fighting like veterans. They anticipate our movements. They counter our tactics before we can implement them. They fight as if they have been studying us for years." The realization hit Dex like a physical blow. The humans had been studying them. For 12 weeks, they had analyzed every aspect of Caltharian technology, tactics, and strategy. They had prepared for this invasion with methodical precision. They had turned the time between bombardment and invasion into a comprehensive education in how to fight and defeat the Caltharian Empire. Human ships began emerging from hidden positions throughout the solar system. They looked like crude modifications of captured Caltharian vessels, but their performance exceeded expectations. They moved faster than they should have been able to move. Their weapons hit harder than primitive technology should have allowed. Their shields withstood attacks that should have destroyed them. The tide of battle began to turn as human forces revealed the true extent of their preparations. Every asteroid in the system had been converted into either a weapon platform or an industrial facility. Every moon had been fortified with defensive positions. Every piece of space debris had been equipped with sensors and communication equipment. The humans had not just built a defense force in 12 weeks. They had converted their entire solar system into a massive military installation designed specifically to counter Caltharian tactics and technology. They had created a battlefield where every advantage belonged to them and every Caltharian strength had been analyzed and countered. Dex watched his fleet take mounting casualties and realized the terrible truth. The Caltharian Empire had not encountered a primitive species ready for conquest. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had spent 12 weeks learning how to destroy them. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. The Caltharian fleet retreated in disorder as human forces pressed their attack throughout the solar system. Admiral Dex ordered a fighting withdrawal toward the outer planets, hoping to regroup and reassess the situation. But the humans had anticipated this strategy as well. Human pursuit squadrons appeared at every expected rally point. They struck at damaged Caltharian ships with surgical precision. They boarded vessels that had lost their shields and captured crew members for interrogation. They seized every opportunity to acquire more technology and gather more intelligence about their enemies. General Hayes commanded the human forces from a converted asteroid base in the outer solar system. His tactical display showed the retreating Caltharian fleet and the pursuing human squadrons. Every ship movement was tracked. Every communication was intercepted. Every tactical decision was analyzed and countered. Hayes had spent 12 weeks preparing for this moment. The bombardment of Earth had given humanity its first real look at advanced alien technology. The capture of Captain Rex had provided detailed intelligence about Caltharian military doctrine. The intercepted communications had revealed the location and strength of the invasion fleet. But most importantly, the delay between bombardment and invasion had given humanity time to prepare, time to reverse engineer alien technology, time to build weapons and defenses, time to convert their industrial capacity from peaceful production to military manufacturing, time to train their forces and develop tactics specifically designed to counter Caltharian advantages. Hayes activated the fleet-wide communication system and addressed his commanders. Continue the pursuit, but do not destroy all enemy vessels. We need some ships to escape and carry word of our capabilities back to their empire. Let them know what happens when someone attacks humanity. The pursuit continued for 6 days as human forces harried the retreating Caltharians across the solar system. Human ships demonstrated capabilities that should not have existed. They used cloaking technology derived from captured stealth systems. They employed weapons that combined human innovation with alien engineering. They coordinated attacks with a level of precision that suggested artificial intelligence beyond anything the Caltharians had encountered. On the 3rd day of pursuit, human forces intercepted a damaged Caltharian cruiser near the orbit of the gas giant. The ship's engines had failed, and its crew was attempting emergency repairs. Instead of destroying the vessel, human boarding parties captured it intact. The Caltharian crew was taken prisoner and transported to a human facility for questioning. The ship itself was towed to a construction yard where human engineers began the process of complete technological analysis. Every system was examined, every component was reverse engineered. Every design principle was documented and improved. On the 5th day, human forces demonstrated their most terrifying capability. They did not just pursue the fleeing Caltharians. They predicted where the enemy ships would go next. Human squadrons appeared at jump points before the Caltharian ships arrived. They waited in ambush at refueling stations. They anticipated retreat routes and prepared interception forces. The Caltharians realized with growing horror that the humans had not just learned their technology. They had learned their psychology. Human strategists understood how Caltharian commanders thought. They knew how the enemy would react under pressure. They could predict tactical decisions before those decisions were made. Commander Quinn, serving aboard Admiral Vex's flagship, watched the pursuit unfold with professional admiration and personal terror. Sir, the humans are not just fighting a battle. They are conducting a systematic study of our military capabilities. Every engagement provides them with more data. Every captured ship gives them more technology. They are treating this war as an educational opportunity. Vex stared at his tactical displays. Another Caltharian ship fell behind and was captured by human forces. They are learning from every mistake we make. Every tactic we use becomes useless once they have seen it. They adapt faster than any species we have ever encountered. On the 6th day, the remaining Caltharian ships reached the edge of the solar system and prepared to jump to hyperspace. Only 37 vessels remained from the original invasion fleet of 200 ships. The humans had captured or destroyed over 80% of the Caltharian force, but as the ships prepared to jump, they discovered that the humans had prepared one final surprise. Human vessels equipped with modified Caltharian hyperspace disruptors appeared around the fleeing fleet. The devices prevented immediate escape while human forces moved into final attack positions. Admiral Vex realized that the humans intended to capture or destroy every ship in his fleet. They wanted no survivors to return to the Empire with intelligence about human capabilities. They planned to disappear back into the darkness of space and leave the Caltharian Empire wondering what had happened to their invasion force. But Hayes had other plans. At the last moment, he ordered the hyperspace disruptors to shut down. The surviving Caltharian ships were allowed to escape, but not before human forces attached tracking devices to their hulls. Not before human infiltrators placed monitoring equipment aboard the vessels. Not before the fleeing ships were loaded with human intelligence gathering systems. Vex's flagship jumped to hyperspace, carrying a dozen human tracking devices and 2 human intelligence operatives who had infiltrated the ship during the confusion of the retreat. The Admiral did not know that human agents were aboard his vessel. He did not realize that every conversation would be monitored. He had no idea that the humans now had direct access to Caltharian military communications. As the surviving ships fled toward Caltharian space, they carried more than just the news of their defeat. They carried human technology, human intelligence agents, human monitoring systems. They had been turned into unknowing tools of human expansion into the galaxy. Hayes watched the Caltharian ships disappear into hyperspace and smiled. The invasion had been a complete success, not because humanity had repelled an alien attack, but because they had turned that attack into an opportunity for advancement. The Caltharians had given humanity everything they needed to become a galactic power: technology, intelligence, motivation, and now access to the wider galaxy through the tracking devices aboard the fleeing ships. The bombardment of Earth had been intended as a demonstration of Caltharian power. Instead, it had become the first step in human expansion beyond their solar system. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy was about to discover what humanity was truly capable of accomplishing. 6 months after the failed Caltharian invasion, the first human ships appeared in alien space. They emerged from hyperspace near the edge of Caltharian territory and began systematic exploration of the galactic arm. The ships looked different from anything the galaxy had seen before. They combined human engineering with alien technology in ways that created capabilities beyond either species. Alone, Ambassador Davis stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel as it approached the Galactic Council station. The massive space station represented the diplomatic center of known civilization. Dozens of species maintained embassies here. Trade agreements were negotiated. Territorial disputes were resolved. Wars were prevented through careful diplomacy and balanced power, but the galaxy was about to discover that the balance of power had shifted in ways that no one had anticipated. The arrival of humanity represented more than just first contact with a new species. It represented the emergence of a force that could reshape galactic civilization. The Galactic Council had been aware of the Caltharian invasion of Earth through intercepted communications. They had expected to receive reports of another successful conquest by the Empire. Instead, they had monitored fragmentary transmissions describing a devastating defeat. The Council had sent investigation teams to determine what had happened, but those teams had found the Caltharian border worlds evacuated and the military forces in complete disarray. Council Chairman Vorthak, a member of the ancient Talarian species, received the human ambassador in the station's main diplomatic chamber. Representatives from 43 different species observed the proceedings. This first contact between humanity and galactic civilization would determine the future of interstellar relations. Davis presented the human position with calm confidence. The human species seeks peaceful coexistence with all galactic civilizations. We desire trade relationships, cultural exchange, and mutual cooperation in scientific advancement. However, we will never again allow ourselves to be vulnerable to unprovoked attack. Vorthak studied the human ambassador carefully. The species appeared similar to several other bipedal races, but there was something different about their demeanor. They spoke of peace while radiating an aura of controlled danger. They requested cooperation while making it clear that cooperation was optional. The Council is pleased to welcome humanity to galactic civilization, Vorthak replied formally. However, we must address the situation with the Caltharian Empire. Our investigation teams report significant damage to their military forces and the apparent disappearance of an entire invasion fleet. Can you explain these events? Davis activated a holographic display that showed the battle for Earth's solar system. The tactical analysis demonstrated human capabilities that shocked the assembled representatives. The capture and reverse engineering of alien technology, the conversion of an entire solar system into a military fortress, the systematic destruction of a fleet that had conquered 17 star systems. The Caltharian Empire attacked our world. Without provocation or warning, Davis explained calmly. They destroyed 4 of our major cities and killed millions of our people. We responded appropriately to their aggression. The representatives from the Draconian Confederacy, long-time rivals of the Caltharian Empire, watched the tactical display with obvious satisfaction. The militaristic species appreciated humanity's efficient destruction of their enemies, but other species showed signs of concern and fear. If humans could defeat the Caltharians so decisively, What did that mean for the rest of galactic civilization? Vorthok realized that the Council faced an unprecedented situation. Humanity possessed military capabilities that rivaled the most advanced species in the galaxy. But they had achieved these capabilities in a matter of months rather than millennia. They represented a new type of civilization that learned and adapted at speeds that defied conventional understanding. The Council acknowledges humanity's right to defend itself, Vorthok said carefully. However, we must establish protocols for future interactions. The galaxy has maintained peace through careful balance between competing powers. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that could disrupt that balance. Davis smiled, and the expression sent chills through several of the observing representatives. Chairman Vorthok, humanity has no desire to disrupt galactic peace. But we also have no intention of limiting our development or expansion to accommodate the fears of other species. We will continue to advance our technology, expand our territory, and defend our interests as we see fit. The human ambassador activated another holographic display that showed human expansion beyond Earth's solar system. In just 6 months, humanity had established outposts in dozens of star systems. They had built mining operations on resource-rich worlds. They had constructed shipyards that produced vessels combining the best aspects of multiple alien technologies, but most disturbing of all, they had done this without asking permission from anyone. They had ignored established territorial claims. They had settled in systems that other species considered their sovereign space. They had expanded with the confidence of a species that feared no opposition. You have colonized systems that belong to other civilizations, protested the representative from the Corinthian Trade Alliance. This violates every treaty and agreement that maintains galactic order. Davis looked at the Corinthian representative with the same calm confidence. Those systems were uninhabited when we arrived. We recognize no territorial claims based solely on proximity or ancient maps. If other species wish to dispute our settlements, they are welcome to attempt eviction. The threat was delivered so casually that several representatives took a step backward. Humanity was not just claiming new territory. They were daring anyone to challenge their claims. They were offering other species the same choice the Caltharians had faced: accept human expansion or discover what happened to those who opposed it. Chairman Vorthok realized that the galaxy had gained a new apex predator, humanity's approach to expansion and diplomacy represented a fundamental challenge to the established order. They negotiated from a position of strength rather than seeking accommodation. They expanded based on capability rather than permission. They treated other species as equals only if those species could prove they deserved equal treatment. The Council will consider humanity's application for membership, Vorthok announced. However, we must establish clear guidelines for territorial expansion and military development. The galaxy cannot afford an arms race between competing civilizations. Davis prepared to leave the diplomatic chamber, but turned back to address the assembled representatives one final time. Chairman Vorthok, humanity appreciates the Council's consideration, but understand that our membership in this body is a courtesy, not a necessity. We will continue our expansion and development regardless of Council approval. The galaxy is large enough for all of us, provided that all of us respect each other's right to exist and prosper. As the human ambassador left the chamber, the representatives began to understand the new reality. Humanity had not come to the galactic community as supplicants seeking acceptance. They had arrived as equals demanding recognition. They possessed the technology and military capability to enforce their demands, and they had demonstrated their willingness to use that capability against anyone who threatened them. The Caltharian bombardment of Earth had been intended to subjugate a primitive species. Instead, it had awakened the galaxy's newest and most dangerous apex predator. The question now was whether galactic civilization would adapt to accommodate humanity's rise, or whether they would follow the Caltharian Empire into defeat and irrelevance.